right, this is 4.5, add and subtract mixed numbers, and this is part 2. We're going to really be focusing on word problems today. So by the end of this, you should be able to add mixed numbers and that you'll be able to subtract mixed numbers. Okay, so here's our first problem. An urban planner is designing a skateboard park. The length of the park is 120.5 feet. The length of the parking lot is 40 1/3 feet. What will be the length of the park and the parking lot combined? So the first thing that we need to do is find important information and also what operation do we need to use. So let's go ahead and highlight the important information. So I'm going to highlight that I know that the length of the park is 120.5 feet. And then the length of the parking lot is 40 1/3 foot. Okay. And it says, what is it going to be of the park? So the park and the parking lot. So the park was in green and the parking lot combined. So I need a total length. So when I have to find the total length, that would be addition. So I need to use addition. Okay. So now I'm going to look at the 120.5 feet. And I need to add the 40 1/3 foot. Well, now that I'm adding these, I need to make sure that my denominators are the same. In this case, they are not the same. So I have to get my denominators the same. So we call that a common denominator. Okay, so I have 2 as a denominator and a 3. So I'm just going to change my fractions. So I'm going to multiply this by 3 over 3. And then the 1/3 I'm going to multiply by 2 over 2. So when I multiply, I'm going to get 120 and then 3/6. Now remember, 3/6 is half, right? So 3 is half of 6, so that we're still at half. So it's still the same, plus, and then I would have 40 and 2/6. And 2/6 is still 1/3. Okay, now I can add my fractions together and then add my whole numbers together. So I'm actually going to reline them up. So I have 120 and 3/6 plus 40 and 2/6. So 3/6 plus 2/6 is 5/6. And then I'm going to go ahead and do 120 plus 40 is 160. So I have 160 and 5/6. This would be not a very good answer because it doesn't mean anything to me. So I would go ahead and go back into my my question. It says, what will the length of the park and the parking lot be combined? So I'm going to answer that just like you would answer in real life. So I would say wrong thing. All right. The length of the park and parking lot combined will be 160 and 5/6 feet long. And that would be my final answer. So this would be criterion D, answering in real life situations. Okay, let's look at this example. It says Karen wakes up at 6 a.m. It takes her 1 1/4 hours to shower, get dressed, and comb her hair. It takes her a half an hour to eat breakfast, brush her teeth, and make her bed. At what time will she be ready for school? Well, I'm going to go ahead and start at 6 o'clock. And it says that it takes her 1 1/4 hours. Okay, So I'm going to add 1¼ hours, but remember the 1¼ hours would be 1 hour, and then 1/4 of an hour is 25 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and add the hour to this, so 1 hour, which would be 7 o'clock. And then I'm going to add the, not 25 minutes, 15 minutes, Ms. Sinclair, sorry. And then I'm going to add the 15 minutes for the 1/4 of an hour. So plus 15. So I'm at 7:15 is when she would be done with shower and dressed and their hair. Okay. Now it takes her a half an hour to eat breakfast. So remember, a half an hour is, so a half an hour is 30 minutes. So I'm going to add 30 minutes to this to eat breakfast. So I'm going to add 30 minutes here. So this would be 7 and then 45. That will take her to, so breakfast is done and teeth and bed made. Okay. So now the final question is, what time will she be ready for school? Well, here's the time she'd be ready for school. So now I need to answer that question. So I went ahead and I wrote it over here. So Karen will be ready for school at 7:45 a.m. I made sure that I wrote 7:45 and a.m. to say that it's still in the morning. And I made a complete sentence answering my question. Okay, let's go ahead and read this last example. So Maria practiced the piano for 2.5 hours last week and 1 3/4 hours this week. Use a bar diagram sections to construct a bar diagram that represents how many hours, Maria, that's not right, practice in the past 2 weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and show what 2.5 is using the bar diagram. So here's 1 hour. We're going to say that's an hour. Here's 2 hours. And then I'm going to go ahead and put still the whole hour, but I'm going to break it up into fourths, basically 1/4 of an hour, right? And I'm going to go ahead and color this in with a highlighter. And this is, so I have 2.5 hours. I have 1 hour, 2 hours, and then it's a half. So a half would be here and on. So there you go. All right. And then it says, so that's the 2.5 hours. And then it says that she did 1 3/4 hours this week. So I'm going to go ahead and draw the 1 3/4 hours. Okay. And I'm going to do that I'll fill it out in red. So I have 1 hour, and then I have to do 3/4 of an hour. So I'm going to go ahead and divide it into fourths. Now let's go ahead and highlight. So I have 1 and 3, that's 1, and then 1/4, 2/4, and then 3/4. Okay. Now it says how many, the final question is how many hours did she practice in the past 2 weeks? So I need to decide, do I need to subtract these from each other or do I need to add? Well, I need to know how many she practiced total. So I need to add both the 2.5 hours and the 1 3/4 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I'm going to first go ahead and add my whole numbers. Okay. So I have 1, 2, 3. So I have 3 holes. I'm going to show you that with just the bar diagram. So I have 3 holes. Let's highlight that. Blue. I have 2 blues and 1 red. Okay. And then I have some parts of in the fourths that I'm going to go ahead and draw out. So I'm going to draw 2 more. And these are in fours. These are all the same length. It doesn't look like it, of course, because Miss Sinclair is a little bit off. All right. So I have 2 in the highlighter. I have in this first one, I have a half an hour. So I'm going to color in a half, 1, 2. And then I have 3, right? Quarters of an hour. So I'm going to draw 1, 2, and then 3. So now looking at it, I have how many total hours? Oops, I went black. So this is 1, 2, 3. I have 4 hours total with a 4th left over. So I have 4 1/4 hours that she spent practicing the last 2 weeks on the piano. Okay. So let's go ahead, and I'm going to go ahead and write that in a sentence. All right, so here's my final answer. I have Maria practiced piano for 4 1/4 hours in the past 2 weeks. I made sure that I answered this question here, and I put it in a complete sentence and making sure that I labeled my hours appropriately. Okay, and that is the end of the word problems for adding and subtracting mixed numbers.